Okay, I'm going to talk about the stuff that's been going on. There's a lot of don't trust the media. I don't trust the media, and not because of maliciousness, but because they're out for entertainment. They're out for ratings. They're out to make money. They don't have much journalistic objectivity, because if they go for a journalistic objectivity, they lose their jobs. People will stop watching, because if you're reporting just the flat facts rather than aiming towards the things that will interest your watchers and keep them watching you, then you'll lose watchers. They'll watch something else. Say, oh, nothing's ever happening on the news. So they'll watch something else. The news will stop getting funding, and they'll lose their jobs. So, by the nature of our lack of interest in nothing, the news media has slowly become entertainment media. So I don't trust the media reports very well. Their reports are skewed. I don't trust bloggers either, and again, it's not because of intentions. It's because the bloggers are reporting things that are of interest to them, things that they think need to be reported. They don't have journalistic integrity for the most part. They are subjective, they are opinionated, they are giving as much in the way of editorials and opinions as the big media is. So again, the picture from bloggers and amateur video captures and other things is, again, biased. So all of our media right now is biased. It's just the way it is. So I don't trust it. Yeah, it's all biased in ways that is, for the most part, it's intentional on the part of big media because they're looking for ratings, but it's not intentional to the degree that they're reporting mistruths. At least I don't think so. I think they are reporting what they have rationalized for themselves is true, so that they can have stuff that people will watch. And the bloggers and amateurists are definitely reporting what they think is true. The problem is that neither of them are reporting facts. They're reporting what they think is true. Instead of reporting the facts. And there's a difference. Anyway, some things here. Somebody put it up about a website here following the in the wake of Trayvon Martin's murder. Many wonder, are the police always on our side? Sometimes your rights just aren't enough to protect you. Blah 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 blah. Let's see. In 1 year in the United States, there were 3,445 police misconduct reports. There were 4,778 victims of police misconduct, police brutality, and there were 258 fatalities. Now, let's see. And according to the FBI for 2012, there were 2 million arrests. 2 million arrests. And according to this, there were 3,445. Yeah, 3,445. Statistics. Here we go. 3,445 reports of police brutality, police misconduct, not just brutality, police misconduct from around the United States, and 200 out of which 258 people were killed. Let's see. Now, let's put that again. 3,445 reports. Let's blow that up to include cases where the police misconduct is not reported, and we'll say 10,000. Okay, so 10,000 reports, which is going to blow up the number of victims to maybe 15,000. And I don't know how many fatalities. There's probably a bad cop or two that has killed someone and gotten away with it to now. Probably more than one or two. Corruption is inevitable in an organization, because an organization can't maintain a single focus. It's made of a whole bunch of different people. Anyway, so 2 million arrests according to the FBI. And according to driving citation statistics, 112,000 people per day receive a speeding ticket. 41 million people in a year receive a speeding ticket. So let's see here. Pull up a calculator. We'll say 10,000. I mean, the reported number is 3,445 reports, but we're going to say there's 10,000 instances. So 10,000. We're going to divide by the number of arrests. 2 million. 2,000,000 is 0.5% of the number of arrests. And any amount is bad. I'm not going to say, oh, this is excusable because it's just this amount. I'm just getting the scale out here. Anytime you find police misconduct, you need to report it before it gets to 1% or 2% or anything like that. But right now that's at 0.5% of arrests. Misconduct reports to arrests. Now we'll do misconduct reports to the number of people who receive speeding tickets, or add to that the arrests. So it's going to be 43 million. It's going to be, say, 10,000 divided by 43 million. Ooh. Exponent 4. That's 0.02%. It's not 0.5%. It's 0.02%. If you take the number of the citations, well, this is actually specifically just speeding tickets, not citations. Take the number of speeding tickets and arrests together. It's less than less than a fifth of a percent. It's less than it's less than 1/10 of a percent. Much less than 1/10 of a percent of the people that have reported, and this is with the number 10,000. If I did the number 3,045, which is what this website reports, then it would be even worse. But okay, here we go. One of 260. These, always be careful of the one of blah 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 statistics. They are always, there are a lot of them are bad. Okay, one of 266 officers is accused of a violent crime. One of 947 is accused of sexual assault. One of 1,875 is charged with homicide. Now, here's the thing. That is going to be inflated because of the number of false accusations that you get from actual criminals who are just wanting to muddy the waters. And that's going to make it hard to tell what the actual numbers of bad police is, because of the people that will report the cops are bad because they want a better trial. 1 in 3 were convicted of violent crimes. You realize, I don't know if it's the same in all cases, but in at least some states, if they are even charged with a felony, they lose their job. Whether they're proven innocent or not, they lose their job. So even just going to trial, blah, that's gone. Now, okay, so again, less than 0.1%, and this using that's using statistics that are more than twice, almost 3 times what this website talking about police brutality statistics. This website I'm looking at is very biased against the cops. And yes, there will be bad cops. There will be bad members of every organization, just like every once in a while you'll get a good person who's stuck in a criminal organization. And you do have to know your rights, because aside from the actual bad police, you're going to run across people that are nervous, people that are in an elevated sense of hyper-awareness because they are concerned for their own safety. So they're going to be acting in ways that are that might lead them to make mistakes that are would be called misconduct. Especially if they're in a situation where they think they might have to arrest someone, they're going to be very defensive. Which is why you do not get in conflict with the cops. You stay calm, you listen to what they say. If they keep pushing at you, then you have a bad situation. But most of I've been pulled over by the cops a couple times. I've had speeding tickets a couple times. I've never had a cop that I felt was out to get me. Now, granted, I am white, which means a lot of people will say that, well, of course, you're white. I have been pulled over by Border Patrol because I was driving around my PT Cruiser back when I had my PT Cruiser and I was living in the States. I have been pulled over by Border Patrol because I had a whole bunch of boxes in my car, and they pulled me over to see I wasn't smuggling anything. And looked at my stuff and saw it was all classroom stuff for me as I was a math teacher at the time. And after about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, let me go. I thought it was interesting, but I've been pulled over by cops for the broken taillight. I've been pulled over for speeding. I've been pulled over because I was driving a little bit erratically, back before I had my apnea under control, and I would have the micro sleeps while I was driving. But you're polite to them; they're polite back to you. Very rarely, I have never had one that was aggressive. Firm, yes, but never aggressive. There will be aggressive cops out there. I mean, again, it's a human organization run by humans. The filtering process for keeping bad people out is only so good. Which is why it's important that when it does happen, you report it. Because if you don't report it because you're afraid, oh, the cops will protect them. True to an extent. I mean, all the dock workers will protect other dock workers. All the criminals will protect other criminals. Well, not so much. All the army will protect other army people. We protect our own. That's human nature. But if you don't report it at all, then nothing ever gets done. Anyway, so that's those statistics. Is with the police, it's less than 0.1%, about 0.1%, a little bit more than that. A quarter of no, not even 1/4%. Not quite. It's not. It's about two. It's a 0.00023 something, and then onward of some ridiculous eternal number. And that's off of where I bloated the statistics of this biased web page, and I'm going to say it's biased because it's pretty. The way they've put up the graphics and everything is pretty flat out biased against the cops. I've got a picture of a cop with an executioner's hood here, and cops spraying people with mace and stuff like that. Okay. Now, let's see. Anyway, let's go on with this. Now, let's go to TSAB. Let's see, TSAB. The airport security. TSAB. What was it? Airport security. Let's see. Now, I have since 9/11, I have flown internationally 7 times, and I have flown domestically twice, I think. And I can't find where it is. Airport security complaints. Okay. TSA. Okay. TSA complaints. Statistics. Okay, so the TSA complaints are down to an all-time low. But let's see here, people are okay. 2004 peak. Oh, this is 2004. Okay, I'm not finding what the complaint statistics are. I haven't heard much about the airport for the last couple of years, so I'll say that. But I'm going to do real quick. How many people fly every day? How many people fly on a daily basis? Let's see. 735 million passengers over a course of 366 days in 2008, or 2 million passengers per day. Now, 2 million passengers per day, and maybe we'll have 1,000, 2,000 reports. We're getting again into 2,000, 4,000 reports over the year. And over the year, it's 735 million passengers, 700 million passengers. This is even more rarefied than the police brutality cases. And as someone who has traveled internationally, again, 7 times, taken 7 international flights, and 3 of them coming into the States, and 4 of them going out. And what is the other thing? And 2 domestic flights. I can say that I have neither experienced. Again, I'm white, and I'm not going to say that's not an issue. I've neither experienced any trouble with the TSA, nor have I seen it. Because I was at one point kind of watching it. It was rather boring. We just went through our line, get up to the security thing. Take off your shoes, please. Huh? Oh, okay. Go through. You just wait for your turn to come through. They scan your thing, and then they're very bored themselves. It's airport security, and then you go on to your plane. So again, 700 million passengers, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 reports of complaints. Now, here is the issue. Media will report what they think will draw ratings. So, the media will report the extraordinary cases because, oh, this just makes sense. I mean, this isn't even maliciousness or ratings. I mean, are you going to report, oh, today nothing happened? That's not news. Really, for the news, you're only wanting to be interested in the extraordinary things. The problem is the extraordinarily good things aren't reported because, something aren't often reported because it's boring. Nobody wants to hear it. It doesn't attract anybody's attention. You hear news about a breakthrough in science, and it's just going to go, ho hum, and they'll go back to doing it. Or some sort of new law passed that's actually pretty good. Oh, ho hum, and go on, and they lose their ratings. So eventually, the media will tend to. The problem is that the media is supposed to report extraordinary events, but they'll tend to report the extraordinarily bad ones because it gets people to pay attention and they get money. And they keep their jobs and they are able to feed their families. So, that's a little bit. Okay. Now, so this is what happens. The vast majority of cases that happen are going to be routine. Ho hum. Nothing happens of note. The vast majority of arrests are going to be routine, probably open and shut. They get you hate to say that, but probably. Then you get the handfuls, the comparative handfuls that are bad, really bad. Either the police got panicked by something, or there's a really hateful person that was involved in it, or among the police, I'm saying, or whatever, for whatever reason, whether they were acting out of malice, fear, or whatever, they did something that attracts the national interest, or it was just a flat mistake. They, have somebody move out of the corner of their eye and they fired and didn't realize it was a kid until too late. That's the stereotypical one. But all we see are the stereotypical case, are the extreme cases, because that's all that's going to go in the news. Because in general, the news is going to assume that you are aware of the way daily practices go, because you live with them. Okay. Now, so, but more and more and more, we'll start looking at the news or whatever as instead of our daily life. I mean, we'll probably pass cops several times in a day. I do here in Japan, and I know I was aware of them when I passed them in these states, and you always get a little bit nervous when you're by a cop because it's like, am I doing something wrong? Am I doing something wrong? Am I doing something I can get pulled over for? I don't want a ticket. I can't afford a ticket. That happens. So there is some nervousness, but most of the time, when I see a cop in the restaurant, or I see a cop somewhere else, I mean, that's probably not going to bother me. And when I'm on the road and I'm not driving too bad, I was like looking over because I like looking at the stealth cars and the cop cars. That always get kind of interesting. But anyway, so we see cops every day and never have a problem with them unless, something happens like we're speeding or whatever, or maybe we make problems from them because, oh, look, it's a cop, let's go mess with them. And there are people like that. And they will defend themselves. That's what they're trained to do. Because a lot of the people they deal with will want to kill them. You don't want to push it when someone is possibly fearing for their life. Or thinks their life might be at risk. Anyway, and a lot of cases with just some idiot going up and harassing cops because they're cops, the cops will probably stay calm and deal with it. But anyway, we see cops every day and nothing happens. But we aren't aware of it because nothing happens. We don't think about it. But we are aware of the media reports. And then we watch TV, which fiction is not interesting if it's not unusual, because we don't want to watch a show where everything goes right and nothing goes wrong, and from beginning to end there's no conflict, everything's certain, it just goes on. Not interesting. So again, the instances we see on media, on fiction, are extreme. They are even more extreme than real cases, because in reality frames don't really work very well. Most of the time a frame up is attempted, it gets seen through. Sometimes not in time, but sometimes it doesn't get seen through, but most of the time someone is trying to lay blame on somebody else, it gets noticed. We see the fiction cases are about the cases that are unusual, that are extraordinary. We do not see the hundreds of thousands of cases that the detectives will do over the course of a year, which last a total of 2 hours plus court time and are solved pretty quickly. We don't see that. It wouldn't be interesting. Now, you turn it into a situational comedy, then yes, it would be people just talking like they did the Barney Miller show, where it was a situational comedy rather than a detective drama. That would be kind of, you could do a show out of that. But for the most part, what the cops do, it gets finished and there's no trouble, and that wouldn't be interesting to a show. And the shows are going to take extreme circumstances even beyond what reality is. They will go based off reality a little bit, but it's fiction. You can stretch a little bit. Granted, real life is capable of more unpredictability than fiction, because fiction has to deal with the expectations of the audience, and if they get too far outside of the expectations of the audience, the fiction fails, because people go to something else. But fiction is by definition unusual events. The news is by definition unusual events, and by nature of the business, more often the unusual bad events than the unusual good events. Or at least the unusual good events are not discussed in as much detail. Again, that's also because of the nature, because people want to be warned about this bad event. And we hear numbers like 3,445, and we hear numbers like 258 fatalities, and 2,000 reports of TSA misconduct, or whatever. And it sounds high. And it's too high, because any number is too high, even knowing that there is always going to be some number of that. Any number is too high. You can't just pass it by and say, oh, that's just an acceptable amount. As soon as it happens, you have to bring it up. But we hype it so much that we blow it out of proportion. And if you say, on the no voting thing, no voting, if you don't vote, then how are you going to know for sure? Then of course it's going to go the way the people that are voting want it to go. The people, because they're the only ones voting, are the people that have an interest in it. And who wins? If no one is, it doesn't matter who I vote for because it's rigged. You can't tell that unless you're involved. Now, if we have a situation sometime where we have a vote and everybody goes on and reports what they vote, then you'll be able to say, hey, we actually voted this way, not this way. This is problematic. It's illegal for the government to post what a particular person voted. It's illegal. They can't do it. So there's no way they could post the votes and somebody says, hey, my vote got changed. That's not the way I voted. There's no way to do it. The government isn't allowed to post that. So you can't double check, which does help for a little bit of that's an alarm, not a phone. Which does help a little bit for the people that would try to rig it. And the other problematic thing is that someone goes to the poll where we're trying to report what we voted, they could report something else than what they actually voted because they're embarrassed or whatever. So you're still dependent on people reporting, and then you have the people that will vote but not go to the poll. What you need to prove rigging is to get everybody involved to publicly report what they voted on their own decision, not involving the government, because the government isn't allowed to do it. We have to do it ourselves, and then compare what the reports are from the civilians to the actual results. Then you can see some rigging. And you need to get as many people voting as possible. And I'm a bad one to say this because I'm sitting here in Japan and I can't figure out how to vote myself. But you need to get as many people voting as possible to make rigging of votes even more problematic. Because if you're not involved, and the people you know are not involved and not voting, you don't really have a sense of who's voting for what, so you can't say whether it's rigged or not, because as far as you know, just the only people that went to vote are the ones that really wanted that things to go that way. And if you try to push, say, oh, the government's not good, don't go into the government, then you're just going to push the good people away from the government, and you won't ever get good people in the government. I think what we're dealing with right now is less maliciousness and more stubbornness. We have people, for years of my life, people complained there's too much compromise in Washington, D.C., but now we're at the point where there's almost no compromise, and nothing's getting done. We finally, all those people say, I'm going to go to Washington and there will be no compromise. We finally got there. And we're frozen. Now, some things I'd like to see. I'd like to see the president with line item veto. Because here's another thing. We will hear that X person voted against this bill and say, why did they vote against that bill? They're evil. Or the government vetoed whatever bill. Why did he veto that? It's bad. We need that. What they don't know is that there's all this stuff. What they don't realize, and some of these people do know, because they'll complain about it, about the Congress being greedy on that. What isn't really generally understood or realized, except when it's convenient, is that there's a lot of stuff added into these bills that doesn't have anything to do with what the stated purpose of the bill is. As a result, you'll have a politician that will vote no on a bill because of the stuff that's added on to it. And any politician, any congressman or congresswoman or president who has been doing their job will have had at least one instance where their opponents can pull up something that they voted against, probably more, and say, oh, look, he's against this because he voted against this bill, but they won't report the full contents of the bill, and we don't know the reasoning behind the voting against it. Right now we have people that will put up a plan, maybe, but other people will just say, oh, that won't work, that won't work, that won't work, but without a plan of their own. And the thing is, you have to have a plan. You can't have a perfect... If you try to go looking for a perfect plan, you're just going to get stuck. You need to have a plan and go through with it, because otherwise you do nothing and nothing gets better. In fact, things get worse. And if you don't have a plan yourself, you shouldn't be too eager to tear apart somebody else's plan, because all that's going to do is again, get you to stagnation. And that's where our problem with politics is right now, is lack of compromise, lack of cooperation between the parties. Now, there's a lot of things that I think we shouldn't be doing as government. Marriage, who marries who, has nothing to do with government, except for, the tax regulations a little bit. But as people, we insist on all these laws. So, okay, the government's purpose is settle disputes, ensure the safety of the settle disputes between citizens, and ensure the safety of the civilians of the nation, and to deal with other governments. That's the three things. And they have the power of taxing so that they can pay for this. They are doing us a service, so we pay the taxes towards them. So for generations, we've made issues of race and religion and sexual orientation and other such things something that the government has to deal with, because we make disputes out of it. And once it becomes a dispute, the government gets involved. Gets involved if they can't solve it themselves, because that's what the government's for, is settle disputes, and that's why we have equal opportunity acts and stuff like that. But in reality, the government shouldn't be concerned with what race a person is. The government shouldn't be concerned with who's married who, or how many people are married to who. How many people one person's married to, or whatever. I don't know. Not that I'm a polygamist, or what gender people are getting married to, or anything like that. I'm pretty much a bachelor. Anyway, that's really societal, cultural. Unless it becomes a dispute, the government shouldn't worry about it. We shouldn't have to. A lot of the programs we pay, probably the government shouldn't have to be dealing with that. There should be a lot more activity from the. A lot of the stuff the government does would be more efficiently done by corporations. And I'm not saying give power to corporations, no. But we're draining away governmental funds on these things like making jobs. The government is incapable of creating jobs except through hiring government officials and maybe hiring crews to do construction. But it is not within the government's purview. The powers that the government has cannot directly create jobs. You can indirectly create jobs by opening up markets to new industries and all that. But you can't. The government can't directly create jobs, but we expect them to. Whereas creating jobs is something you need from the corporations. And the corporations will only start creating more jobs when they are expectant of being able to have getting something out of those jobs. Because if the government, if a corporation just creates a new job, even though they can't get something out of that person working for them, then they will eventually lose all their money and they will fail, and all their employees will go join the unemployed workforce. They have to make a profit to grow. If they don't, I mean, the thing is that a healthy company is not going to be just sitting around with hoarding money, because money that's hoarded is worthless. It has to be doing something to be worth anything. Really, the corporations are the ones that are in position of the businesses. Corporations, yes. Small businesses, yes. Are the ones that are in position to be hiring people and creating jobs. But we put that burden on the government, which is unfair. The economy, again, is something the government can only affect indirectly and really vaguely. It's really, for the government to fix economy, it has an impact, but in decisions they make will have different positive or negative impacts. But to control the economy, it's beyond the purview. It's beyond, not only beyond this, it's beyond their purview. Again, it's like creating jobs. It's subject to forces that are not in the government's control entirely. They can tweak it here and there, but most of that's going to be involved in the attitudes of the people and what they are buying and where they're buying it and what they are doing with the money they earn and stuff like that. All they can do is try to encourage an environment. All the government can do is try to encourage an environment where the economy gets better, and that's iffy. It takes some forecasting, some predicting, and it's not always going to be the best. And again, we blame the government for bad economy, and again, to a certain extent, yes, bad government will produce a bad economy. But we expect our government to do more than it should be able to do, and our government currently is full of people that are of the variety that, oh, there's a problem, we'll throw money at it, which is problematic, because, oh, there's this problem, but it's not a government issue. We don't need to make a program for it. It's a different issue. It's not a government issue until people start protesting or boycotting. And even then, as protesting and boycotting isn't a government issue, except for to keep things separated so that it doesn't turn into a riot. The whole Occupy Wall Street thing is a little bit off, and I'll pause a moment to complain here. Current protesters seem to think that they shouldn't be arrested when they make the protest. You look the 50s and the 60s, they went to jail. They were breaking the laws. They knew they were breaking the laws, and they went to jail willingly. Or not willingly, they resisted, but I mean they knew they were going to jail. They didn't dismiss the fact that yes, they had done something against the law. They were working to change the law and show that it was wrong. But the current thing now is, we have a right to be here. Committing trespassing, going into corporate owned or privately owned property and occupying it as a protest. Fine, I'm for that. But then by turning around and repeating, hey, we have a right to be here because we're doing the protest. No. You have to accept the risk. Loitering is, again, there are some laws on loitering too. If you're breaking a law, you have to, for a purpose, fine. I agree with everyone's, I've said already, the law is not made for every circumstances. But if you're breaking it, you're going to have to suffer the consequences for breaking it. They can't just say, you're doing it for the right reason, therefore we won't charge you. You go to trial and maybe you get pardoned or maybe you get let off or whatever, but you do go to jail, you do go to trial. That's the sacrifice you take for doing the protest. But a lot of the protesters I hear now is like, no, we're not going to go. We shouldn't go to jail. Blah 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 blah. We're doing what's right. You shouldn't take us to jail. You should be helping us. Blah blah blah. You don't, which is another problem. You don't want cops to be able to decide that. A cop going around saying, this person's breaking the law for the right reason, I'm not going to bother him, is as bad as the cop who will kill someone because they're doing something wrong. You have the cop that's going around vigilante style killing drug dealers. That's as bad as the cop that's letting people go. I mean, the cop that's letting people go because he agrees with their cause is as much corrupt as the one that's killing people he thinks are criminals and maybe be mistaken about whether they are or not. It's the same power. And we don't want them to have the power of execution, but we want them to have the power of exoneration, and you can't give them one without the other. Now, the individual cop can make the decision, I'm not going to charge you, and move on. As long as it stays quiet, which it happens. You'll get pulled over for a speeding ticket, but because you're being nice and polite or whatever, they don't charge you. Or like one case, like running a stop sign, is and I was the first person all day in a mostly white neighborhood. I'm going to put that out. Mostly white, affluent, high middle class neighborhood. I was the only person pulled over all day that did not give him any hassle. And so I was the only person he didn't give a speeding ticket to. And I was in a old ratty car. My brother had been in a car accident recently, so the bumper was in the back seat. I did not look like I belonged in the neighborhood at all, and I didn't live there anymore. And to add to matters, he was talking about how they got posted there because the neighborhood had been complaining about people running that stop sign. So now they're there, and the people that complained about no people running that stop sign are now complaining about the cop that's been assigned to stop the people running the stop sign. So the people that complained are now complaining about the cop. It's no win. And they will sometimes let you go if they don't think it's bother, which is bad, which they shouldn't. I guess they have but then those are not really major crimes, so it's going to be overlooked. And that's fine. It's up. I mean, we have free will. The law does not determine what we're going to do. The law is right most of the time because it's written for circumstances that happen most days. It only starts falling apart in extraordinary circumstances. But and the same cop can make the decision to kill someone because of because they don't like their race. That's on their decision. It's not on the police. It's on the police for not noticing such a person getting into the police, and it would be on if they let it continue once they learned about it. But individual cops can make the decision to break those rules. Fine. But it's the same fallacy. To have the power of exoneration and the power of execution is the same power of judgment, which they're executive branch, they're not judicial branch. The power of judgment is jury and judge. So when you are telling the cops, you're protesting, you're telling the cops, don't arrest me, I'm doing the right thing. I am protesting this animal testing or this environmental thing or whatnot, or Wall Street. I am protesting this and I am doing the right thing, so you shouldn't arrest me. If you arrest me, you're being a soldier to these evil people, blah, 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 blah. You're undercutting the jury trial. They're saying, oh, we don't need a trial of my peers. The cop should just be able to say they're not doing anything wrong and not arrest me. Despite the fact that I'm somebody else's property and that person is complaining. So now, whether this person's right or wrong, they have rights too. And if you're sitting on their property, blocking their daily business, then they have the right to call the police to arrest you. And you are breaking the law. Now, the extent of it afterwards might blow up depending on how aggressive or resistant you are, but I mean, I don't really have much respect for modern day protesters, not compared to like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and people of that era. It's not the same. They went to jail, proved their point. They took that risk. Muhammad Ali, instead of going to Vietnam, went to prison. And draft dodging, refusing to go to the draft, is a crime. So, yeah, the government was right to send him to prison. But he was right to protest, and he accepted the risk of going there. I don't know that they should have taken the title that they did, but I think they gave that back to him later. Now, as compared, you have William Clinton, who left the country and complained about it from, I think, Russia or somewhere else. So, not nearly as laudable. Anyway, that's the end of my rant. I've been ranting for 53 minutes here, according to this, so I'm going to stop.